Welcome to the Independent School Podcast with me, Juliet Corbett. As an executive coach, I guide senior leaders in the world of education to find their strategic focus, empower their teams, and regain control over their time, helping them go from exhausted to strategic. On this podcast, I share the ideas and tips that I've developed over the years to help the leaders that I've worked with one-to-one. So here I can help you to focus on your priorities and achieve your goals with confidence and ease. And this week we're going to be taking one step further towards demystifying strategy. You've probably, if you've listened to the podcast before, you've probably heard me say before, I hate the fact that strategy is full of jargon. People try to make it seem much more complicated than it really is. And one of my missions in my working life is to demystify strategy so that everybody feels confident that they can be strategic, both in their thinking and their decision making and then their actions in the day-to-day. And one of the ways in which strategy has got a little bit off track, in my opinion, over the last kind of decade or so, is that we have become slightly obsessed with the idea of visioning, having a vision, having goals, being the core part of strategy. So what I'm going to be talking about today is an alternative point of view, one that I absolutely subscribe to, and it's rooted in the work of Richard Rumelt, who's written a couple of easy access books about strategy for leaders, as well as a whole raft, a career's worth of academic papers around strategy. So he really is a guru in this area, and he has called out, if you like, this fact that we are going down the wrong path when we're really focusing on vision and goals as being the key part of strategy. And instead, he wants to talk about problem-based strategy, the idea of focusing on the problem, not focusing on the goal. So I'm going to expand a little bit on his ideas and expand them into how I use those ideas in my work, and specifically how this applies to independent schools and how leaders and members of staff across independent schools can really be benefiting from the idea of focusing on the problem, not focusing on the goal or the vision. So first of all, just to say, I'm not saying that you don't need goals or a vision. I think goals and having a big vision, it is important. It is the first building block of strategy, as I talk about in my framework for building blocks of strategy. So it is there, but there is a big danger that we focus on it too much. And sometimes when I'm working with teams, one of the things that, and senior leaders one-to-one, one of the things that I say is, it's absolutely fine if your vision or your goal is a little bit hazy. Maybe it would be a great idea to put some KPIs around it, and SMART goals and things. This is all good stuff. And it's important to be, to have a bit of precision when we're setting goals. But at the end of the day, if we're trying to do that with a goal or a vision that doesn't warrant that level of accuracy, if the goal is inherently a little bit hazy, I think that's okay. I think that's fine, because we're not going to be spending all our time focusing on the goal. And when we've achieved that goal, even if it's hazy, we as a leadership team or as a governing board, we can agree whether or not that goal has been met. We don't have to have a KPI to tell us whether a goal has been met if it is inherently a little bit hazy. And this goes against some of the leadership literature, some of the strategy literature, which is very, very focused on precision KPIs and precision kind of visioning and the idea of having a really inspiring, detailed storytelling style vision. It goes against some of that. And I think actually it's important sometimes that when we disagree with what is being said out there in the rest of the sector, we just name it and say it. And I'm very happy to say it now. I think we are overly focused on the idea of goals and vision. A couple of reasons why I think that's the case. Firstly, when we focus on a goal, let's say we are leading a team within a school and we're very much focusing on the goal that we've been set for this year, or we maybe hopefully have set ourselves for this year or been involved in setting for this year. Just stating the goal over and over again and reminding people this is the goal, this is the vision, we're inspired to deliver this goal, to deliver this vision. It's just a statement of aspiration. It doesn't actually say how we're going to get there. It doesn't give anyone space to really debate in a healthy kind of way, what are we going to do to deliver that goal? We just set on, if we think it positively enough, then maybe we'll get there. And especially in some cultures, and actually I don't normally find that this is the case within schools, but in some cultures there's this sense of, if we just think positively enough about our aspiration, we have positive mantras that we're saying to ourselves in the morning, and we have these positive kind of thinking routines that we go through, that we're going to reach our goal through some kind of mystical process. I don't often see it in independent schools, but in a way, sometimes just focusing on the goal is a way of saying the same thing. We're just going to think positively and we'll get there eventually. But basically, if you're not going to be taking action, it's very unlikely that positive thinking is going to be enough to get you towards your goal. And if we're just focusing on the goal, we're not talking about action. We're talking about an aspiration. And as much as, yes, that can inspire people to work hard, and yes, that can inspire people to be resilient through setbacks, and, it has a place, unless we're really focusing on the action that we're going to be taking as a group, as a team, within our culture, it's going to be chance as to whether or not we deliver that goal or not. So focusing on the goals, not so great. And certainly within his book, Richard Rumelt's written 2 books, which I recommend highly, and I will put the links in my episode notes. One is called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, and then his second book is called The Crux. Both of those books are about, especially Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, about how just focusing in this way on goal setting is taking us on a distracting path. It's taking us into a bit of a cul-de-sac, a bit of a dead end, where actually we don't have the tools that we need to actually deliver the change and the vision that we're trying to enact. So instead, what Richard Rumelt talks about is problem-based strategy. And his idea is that we need to diagnose the problem that's holding us back. Now, this is where my thoughts differ from Richard Rumelt slightly. I do think that we need to have a sense of the vision that we're trying to deliver in order to work out what is it that's holding us back. How do we diagnose that problem? But his argument is that we have to focus 100% on diagnosing the problem and then switch our attention to solving that problem. Now, in the way that I talk about the language that I use, rather than using the word problem, and I know I've used it in the episode title for this episode, but rather than using the word problem, I usually use the word sticking points. And this could be internal sticking points, which if you're thinking about a SWOT analysis would be your internal weaknesses, or they could be an external threat, something that's happening outside your school gates that is holding you back because it's a negative trend. So this is sticking points. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time when I'm working with leaders, both one-to-one and in teams, is talking them through what are the sticking points, creating a safe space, a safe environment in which people can actually name the sticking points, the things that are holding them back from delivering that goal or that vision. Now, one of the comments that I sometimes hear, one of the criticisms against this approach is that it feels very negative. Sometimes when I'm working with senior leaders in advance of a strategy workshop, for example, I say, look, we're really short of time. I wish we had longer, but we've got a really short amount of time. We want to make real progress. I'm proposing that we're going to be focusing on the sticking points. There's a feeling sometimes that comes back to me that this is going to mean that everyone leaves really downhearted about it, that we are going to end up feeling a bit negative about the whole process. And I think there is definitely some validity to those concerns. But there are a couple of things that I always say to overcome those concerns and then to make sure that isn't the way that people leave the room. I never want people to leave a strategy workshop feeling downhearted. The first thing is to say that if you're naming a problem and then solving it together with a team, that's got to be better than failing to name the problem. Everybody knows what the problem is. Everybody knows the sticking points that are holding you back, but it's almost like the elephant in the room. No one wants to talk about it. And that leads to a feeling of a lack of belonging, a lack of feeling like you're really in it together with your teammates, a sense that senior leadership are just turning a blind eye to something that's really obvious to everybody else and should be obvious to senior leadership, but they're not acknowledging the problem. That's not a healthy outcome either. And then the alternative is that maybe people don't even know what the sticking points are. If you're trying to achieve a goal as a team and year on year you're not quite getting there, and there's this just frustration, I feel like every year I'm driving toward the same brick wall and then hitting it and failing to get through that brick wall to achieve the goal that we've set as a team. And that's not great either. That frustration builds up over time. It's not a great feeling either. So at least with this approach, you're naming the problem out loud within a team, within a safe environment, and then solving it together. And there are a couple of things that I specifically do. And if you've been in one of my strategy workshops, you may not have noticed that I tried to do this, but this is what I tried to do. One of the things is to name the accelerators. So the accelerators are the opposite of your sticking points within my 4 building block strategy model. These are the things that are really positive, that are driving you towards that vision. And without even thinking about it, normally people just don't even realise that these are positives because they're just so embedded in the culture, so embedded in the school, that the positives that are driving you forwards. Ideally, you want to be using those accelerators to help you overcome the sticking points. So when you've named the sticking points and you're looking to overcome them, if you can actually name the accelerators as well and use them in your plans to overcome the sticking points, that gives people automatically a sense of, we're good at some stuff too. This is going well, just that we want it to go better. That gives them that positive negative balance as they're in their discussions, but it also means that you're kind of ninja level strategy, because if you can use those accelerators to overcome the sticking points, you're going to get there much faster in terms of delivering those goals. The other thing that I do is really encourage senior leadership to remind people of that exciting vision. Although we've got sticking points and we need to overcome them, we're reminding people that we're heading towards a really exciting future. So having that tough conversation is worth it. And then finally, celebrating success. We want to celebrate success every time you, your team, your school takes a step forwards. And even if it's a minuscule step, I don't care, celebrate it. If you're taking a step forwards towards solving the problem, celebrate it. Celebrate it publicly, because that's what reinforces that culture of we're doing the tough stuff, we're overcoming the problems, we're heading towards that exciting vision. The other thing that sometimes, and leaders don't always name it this way, but I can sometimes feel it in the room, is the feeling that this is hard, this is a bit uncomfortable to sit in a room or even just one-to-one with me in an executive coaching session to name the things that are holding you back. It's not the most comfortable conversation to have. And I'm afraid my message to you at this point is both positive and negative. The bad news first. That's tough, to put it bluntly. As leaders within any community, and certainly within a school community, it's your job to lead tough conversations. It's your job to take tough decisions. And if you're avoiding that, you're not really living fully the role of a senior leader within your school. So that's the bad news. It might feel uncomfortable, but it's tough luck. You're going to have to do it anyway. The good news is you don't have to do it alone. There are people out there who can help you. Now, one of the things that can help is making sure you've got good relationships with the other leaders within your school. So whether they're your peers, whether they're your seniors, whether they're people reporting to you, it doesn't matter. Having a really good personal relationship with them so that you're able to see them as a human. And they can see you as a human. There might be some things that you don't share, and that's fine. We don't share all of our vulnerabilities, especially with the people that we are leading. But share enough to know that you're a group of people, you're in it together, you're not trying to solve these problems alone. The other thing which can be really helpful is using someone that you can talk to outside your organisation. And that's basically what I do when I'm doing my executive coaching with senior leaders, giving them a completely confidential, private space to work through some of these things. And then often what I'm talking about is giving them the first few steps on this road, so that identifying those sticking points and what's holding them back as individual leaders and as teams within schools, and then enabling them to go and facilitate a strategy workshop or a team day within their team in order to have these tough conversations. And the other thing I do is actually facilitating those tough conversations myself. So facilitating the strategy workshops where we're looking for what are the sticking points that are holding us back. And we're really looking for high quality, like super power quality strategic thinking to identify what those sticking points are, or as Richard Rumelt would put it, diagnosing the problem, and then figuring out how you're going to overcome those sticking points. And that's the third building block of my model, which is called the general approach. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to overcome those sticking points in order to deliver your vision? So you're not alone. There are other people that can help you both within your school and others like me around. And if you think that maybe I'm the right person to help you, just reach out. I love to hear your feedback. I'm particularly on a mission when it comes to demystifying strategy. It really annoys me when people overcomplicate this stuff. So I'm trying to make it simple for you. Am I achieving that? Let me know what's resonated with you. What actions are you going to take as a result of this? Or maybe you have a different perspective, or there's something I haven't been fully clear about. Let me know so that I can help you more in future podcasts. And if this has been helpful, do share this episode with a friend or a colleague. As I think I've said before, most people discover this podcast because it's recommended to them by someone else. We know word of mouth is the most fantastic way of spreading good ideas through our communities. So please do share this podcast with others if you find it helpful. That's it for this week. Go and have a look in the episode notes for the links to those 2 books by Richard Rumelt I talked about, and also for my contact details if you want to contact me about taking some next steps and working together. Have a strategic week, and I'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye then.